What up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. It is Friday, June the 12th, 2020, and diving into another college football video. Pick and prediction time. Talking schedules, talking Clemson Tigers, one of my favorite teams to talk about. Winners of 2 out of the last 4 national championships, and good God, they will not let you forget it. And let's dive into the schedule. Just talk about the Tigers for a minute, what they got coming back, what they're losing, and how this year is going to shape up for them. So, as everybody knows, Tigers return Trevor Lawrence, right, be a true junior this year. Was thrown for about 3,700 yards last year. Got off to a little bit of a rough start, right, but still came back in time with 36 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions on the year. Of course, they did make it to the College Football Playoff National Championship game, where they lost 42-25 to LSU in a game that was dominated by Clemson in the first quarter, but really dominated by LSU in the second and third quarters, and then they just kind of coasted from there. So that final score was really not indicative of how close of a game that really was, especially at halftime. Or right before halftime, you could see the momentum kind of shifting LSU's way, and there it would stay. But right now, they're preseason ranked number 1. Got a lot of returning talent. Got a lot of question marks, though. We're going to see how that pans out. Biggest question mark is the loss of a true junior wide receiver, Justin Ross, who was one of the candidates to be, I guess you'd say, player of the year in the ACC, maybe, right? Was supposed to step up and take over the role of T. Higgins, who left for the NFL. Justin Ross is going to be out for the year. I heard some stuff today talking maybe he will be able to play some towards the end of the year. I'm not really sure about that. I just kind of caught the ass end of the conversation on the radio, so I'm not really sure about that. But they do return Amari Rogers, wide receiver. He's a senior, a guy who's been hurt some of his career, and he's played okay. He's kind of like a Hunter Renfrow type player. He kind of plays in the slot a little bit. I don't think he's as much of a deep threat as what Ross and Higgins were. They're going to have to rely on some players to step up who really haven't had a lot of playing time there, namely Joseph Nagata and Frank Ladson. Both of these will be sophomores, and Cornell Powell, guy that's going to be a senior who hasn't had a lot of playing time so far. It's Nagata and Ladson. I don't really know what they can do. I'm sure they'll be okay. I'm sure they're 12 stars. Everybody they recruit up there is the next best thing, but I'm not sure. They played some last year sparingly and really didn't deliver a whole lot. But then again, they didn't get a whole lot of opportunities. Of course, when you're playing with a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, he's going to throw you open more times than he's not. But as these two guys, as Uncle Lou would say, I don't see being the kind of guys that are going to, quote-unquote, take the top off of defense right away anyway. But we'll see. They'll develop into something. You got to think, though, Ross not being here this year, how is that really going to affect Trevor Lawrence's Heisman Trophy type, his Heisman, well, let me get it out. His chances for the Heisman Trophy, because when you have an elite wide receiver or a couple of elite wide receivers or one elite one and one really good one on your team, winning the Heisman Trophy makes it a lot easier, a lot more attainable. We saw that last year with Joe Burrow. How is that going to affect Trevor Lawrence in his quest for that trophy before he leaves Clemson? My thought is that's going to have a little bit of an effect on it, because I don't know that these guys are ready for some of those big game situations. I don't worry about them catching balls against Boston College and NC State, but I would worry about them catching balls against Notre Dame and, whoever you may play in the ACC championship game or the playoffs. By that time, though, they should be seasoned enough that it really doesn't matter. You also return your tight end, Braden Galloway. Came back last year, came back for the playoffs, right? He was suspended all the rest of the season in the playoffs the year before for being involved in the old Osterine scandal there at the 2018 playoffs. So that's huge. And you also returned J.C. Chalk, who was another possession type tight end that did a good job for you as well. Along the offensive front, you only returned one starter, that being Jackson Carman, the big left tackle, who's named first team preseason All ACC by most of these magazines. Thought it was interesting that your right tackle, Jordan McFadden, who is a rising sophomore, was named to the second team, even though he was really not a starter last year and then just rotated in and out and played sparingly. They do put you as the number one offensive line unit in the ACC still, with only one returning starter, and that's because of the system they got going on there at Clemson. I mean, they really do rotate these guys out at a really quick pace, and they give them some experience early on. They'll do the same thing on the defensive line as well. So that's why they are, even though they lost, 4 of their starters, they're still predicted to have the number one offensive line unit because they've recruited really well, and these guys still got some game time experience. I'm sure young Mr. McFadden got plenty of game time experience last year, or he wouldn't be picked as the second team preseason All ACC left right guard, right tackle, whatever. He's played something over there. This cuts down on injuries, right? When you have players that can run back and forth and they're conditioned to get in the rotation a lot. People, they like to harp on that. I hear this a lot especially when Gamecock fans and Clemson fans are arguing back and forth. That, and I hear it too from Alabama fans throwing shade at Clemson too. And part of the thing about my channel is, yes, I'm a Gamecock fan, and yes, I hate Clemson with a passion. I hate them with every fiber of my being. I cannot stand them. I can't even stand going into Pickens County. That's how bad it really is. I cannot stand them. But I also am realistic, and I can look at things from a realistic point of view, and the thing is, they've got a really, really good team. And they're really talented at a lot of positions. But a lot of the Clemson haters, like the Paul Feinbaum types, the Alabama fans, they'll say, well, you don't play, a SEC schedule, so that's why you're able to stay. You don't get beat up. That's why you don't ever have any injuries, because you play teams like Duke and Wake Forest and blah, blah. Okay, well, you know what? If that were the case, then the Dukes and the Wake Forest and the UNCs and the Virginias of the world, they wouldn't have any injured players on their team either, right? Am I right or am I wrong? No, they have injuries as well. The Taters just do a really good job of rotating people in. They have a really good strength and conditioning program, something that we've been lacking down at the University of South Carolina for quite some time. And hopefully this new guy that we got coming in from Ole Miss, right, will be able to make some improvements for us, because Ole Miss is just known for great strength and conditioning, and for the much ballyhooed football program that they put on the field for the past 10 years. I mean, I won't say any more about that situation right now. Talk about the Gamecocks a little bit later this time. But getting back to Trevor Lawrence again, this loss of Justin Ross, to me, that rhymed, didn't it? Loss of Ross. The loss of Ross may kind of open things up for Travis Etienne to make an even bigger impact on the offense than what he would have already made, and maybe he may be a Heisman Trophy candidate. Maybe, maybe so. And I once again, not glorifying injuries, I hate it that Justin Ross can't play. I mean, that sucks. But you got to look at it, from all points of view. I mean, this could have an effect on it. Travis Etienne back for his senior season. I mean, I think that says a lot about his character. He come back. He wants to win. He wants to win another championship, and he wants to win a Heisman Trophy. And, I mean, I could see it possibly happening. I think he's probably the best running back who's ever played at Clemson. And could, after this season, become the best one that's ever played in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So all we'll see about that. So that's pretty much your offense in a nutshell. I mean, they're going to score a lot of points this year. backup running back. Lynn J. Dixon's done a good job, and interested to see the backup last year for Clemson was Chase Bryce, right? He transferred out. He's at Duke now, grad transfer, I do believe, and then Tyson I can't even pronounce the guy's last name, so we'll just say Mr. P. Mr. P was third teamer. He played a little bit. He can run around a little bit, but it looks like this year the backup job is probably going to end up in the hands of highly touted freshman coming in from the state of California, DJ Ugalagolele. Yeah, I said it right. I didn't say what I called him in that video that time. Ukulele. I had to do that. DJ Ugalagolele is going to be the backup for him. On the defensive side of the ball, you still just got some question marks there, too. Your secondary, that back end, is kind of depleted. The only starter you return back there is number one, your corner, Darion Kendrick. You got a lot of players there who have played a lot. Nolan Turner comes back. We saw he made an interception in the game against Ohio State there to kind of seal that one up. You should be in good shape, the linebacker spots. James Skalski comes back there in the middle, right? Big time leader of the defense there, and your defensive line really solid with Justin Foster, Tyler Davis, Niles Pinckney, and Xavier Thomas coming in. We want to see what Mr. Thomas can do this year. He's been kind of underwhelming the last couple of years that he's been there. Hadn't really done a whole lot. And Clemson fan, I had one idiot on here telling me that, well, the reason why he didn't do anything was because we ran a three-man front a bunch last year so they could free Isaiah Simmons up to make tackles. That no, the fact is Isaiah Simmons had to do more than his share on that defensive unit because Xavier wasn't holding up his end of the deal on the line. That's facts, sir. That's facts. I didn't say it. Another one of your Clemson fans says it, one that actually has a radio show here in the state of South Carolina. Told me that. So, Trevor Lawrence can also run around a little bit too. We saw him run like a, 75-yard touchdown against Ohio State last year. So, yeah, should be in good shape as far as kicking goes. You return your punter, right? His name's Will Spires, and B.T. Potter will be back handling your field goals and extra points. I mean, he's not one that's going to wow you, but he does come out and do a pretty decent job. So there you have it in a nutshell. A lot of talents. Oh, I also wanted to say that defensive line, once the first string gets out of there, I mean, the guys behind them, I mean, you're looking at bringing in Miles Murphy, right, freshman, highly touted kid. Brian Breezy, another highly touted young man. From the state of Maryland, I think it is, and KJ Henry from North Carolina, who really didn't play a lot last year. That was a big-time recruit a couple of years ago. So we'll see how that goes, but it's a talent-laden roster up and down it. It's a young one, though, in a lot of spots, so we'll see how it gels together. It's also interesting to wonder about the coronavirus. How is that, what kind of crowds are we going to have? We still don't know at this point in time. I mean, how's that going to affect, especially your home games? I mean, as talented as you are, I wouldn't think it would affect it a whole lot, but we'll just get into it and see. All right, so let's get into this 2020 schedule now. I've been wanting to dive into this one, and we're going to do it. You open up on September 3rd on a Thursday night on the road at Georgia Tech. In Atlanta, last year you opened up with them on the 30th of August in Clemson, a game that kicked off the ACC Network's coverage, their live coverage of football games or whatever. You beat the brakes off of them. I've always heard all this talk about Thursday night games, Friday night games, all this crazy stuff happens, and for the most part that can be true. However, I really don't see that being the case here. I think you're going to go on the road to Atlanta and take care of business. I think that you handle Georgia Tech, although I do think that this year's game will be a little bit closer than what last year's was. I think Jeff Collins is a good head coach and is going to do some really good things down there at Georgia Tech. It's going to take him a while, but he seems to be recruiting okay. And I think that they will give you a little bit tougher of a test than they gave you last year. I mean, I can see you winning this game by about 21 points or so, but you take the victory against Georgia Tech on September 3rd. Louisville comes to Clemson on September 12th. This has potential to be a really big-time early season matchup in the ACC. What Scott Satterfield did last year at Louisville was nothing short of amazing. I mean, that team in 2018 had given up. I mean, they were absolutely horrible. If you'll remember, they came into Death Valley and they got like curb stomped. What was it, like 77-12 or something like that? I mean, they were just awful. I think they won like 2 games. They weren't playing for Bobby Petrino. Offense had given up. Defense had given up. I mean, last year, they come out in the early season. I think it was the season opener against Notre Dame. I mean, it was like, my God, where's this team been? I even made a little video about it when I was watching that, like a little 2-minute piece. I couldn't believe that Louisville looked like this. And they ended up doing pretty well last year, made it to a bowl game, right? Still got their ass kicked by Kentucky, though. I can't get past that. I mean, they should have done a little bit better than that, especially in a rivalry game. It is what it is. They'll get them this year. You get them at home. Once again, this is a game last year that you played them on the road, and that one was close for a quarter, and then Clemson kind of blew them out like 45-10. But this one's at home. I expect this one to be a little bit closer than what it was last year. And another scenario I see, maybe you beat them by about 21 points. Their quarterback, Malik Cunningham, a really good player. They've got some other good ones too as well. That running back they have, Hawkins is the last name, and Atwell, the wide receiver. Pretty decent players, and Louisville's going to cause some problems for some people. Might not be this year, but Scott Satterfield's a good coach. That's somebody I would have liked to see the Gamecocks go after at one point in time, but no, we chose to go another route. Anyway, week 3, Akron at home. I mean, name your score. I mean, I fully expect to see DJ Ugalele maybe out kicking extra points in this game. I mean, you'll win this one by at least 60 points. Not only is Akron a non-Power 5 team, they're a terrible non-Power 5 team from the MAC conference. I predicted, I think, not to even win a game in the MAC this year. So you'll roll there 3-0. Next week, you're at home against Virginia. I think you picked the win up here. A lot of people are talking about Virginia, and they're like, Virginia's not going to be any good. They're going to be really, really, really down this year because they lost Bryce Perkins. He was their entire offense, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Bronco Mendenhall is not stupid. I mean, he's not stupid. I mean, this guy's been around coaching for a while. They'll be okay. Virginia will be okay. He's got them now, I think, where he's got them to where they can consistently make a bowl with the roster that they've got right now. I can see them maybe being a 6, maybe a 7-win team. I don't think that they're going to make it to the ACC championship game this year as the Coastal's representative. But he's always going to have a staunch defense. But let's just face facts. Last year, they had won, 9 games coming in to the ACC championship game when they played Clemson, I think. And you absolutely blew their doors off. I mean, whether they had Bryce Perkins or not. I mean, that was just utterly laughable. They looked like they didn't even belong on the field out there against you, and I really didn't. And, you just took care of business against them. This one I don't see being much different. I do believe that they may have some issues early on. They're not going to be as talented offensively, like we said. But that doesn't mean they're still not going to win some ball games this year. But give me Clemson in this game. I think you'll win this one by about 4 scores at home. The next week you go on the road to Boston College. It's a Friday night game, okay? Forget what we said about crazy stuff happening on Friday nights and blah, blah, blah. It's weird, though. This one comes at a weird time on the schedule. It comes on a weird time on the schedule. And this one comes about 3 years to the day. It's when the last time, and when we just speak about that real quick, 3 years ago from October the 2nd, it was almost 3 years prior, was the last time Clemson lost a regular season game. Yeah. They lost to Syracuse on the road. I think that was like October 6th or 7th of 2017. They lost to Syracuse on the road. I mean, that goes a long way towards telling you how good this program really is. I mean, you're talking about a string. If they can get past this, it will be over 3 years since they have lost a regular season game. I mean, who can say that? Nobody, right? Nobody can say that. You're on the road at Boston College. They're rebuilding this year. Their coach, got a new coach. It's his name, Jeff Hafley. Does that mean he's half a coach? I don't know. We'll see. I like him. He comes from that Ohio State background. Should be no nonsense type approach. Maybe we'll open things up there a little bit. It needs to be opened up a little bit. Playing under Steve Adazio. They're playing grandpa, old man football, kind of like what University of South Carolina's been playing the past few years. Will Muschamp at the helm. I think you take a win here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mr. Hafley getting Boston College improved. His real challenge is recruiting, right? Because there's not that much talent around Boston. I mean, it's a really big city, right? It's a huge place, but you don't have a lot of high school football talent in the area, at least not the kind that's going to compete in the ACC. You might have some that's going to compete in the Ivy League. You may have some that's going to be able to compete in the Colonial Conference up in the FCS level, but not the kind that's going to compete in the ACC. So you really, really got to kind of branch out your recruiting a little bit further south, and you just can't get a lot of kids to want to come to Boston to play football. I mean, you just don't. So that's their biggest challenge there. But, I mean, if anybody can get it done, I'm sure that this guy can get it done. Ohio State's recruited at a high level over the years, so we'll see. But I think you pick the win up there. I think it's probably a 35-point win on the road at Boston College. You take back to the road again on October the 10th. Back to Saturday games from here on out, taking on Florida State. Expected to be improved under first-year head coach Mike Norvell. I'm sure they'll get a shot in the arm. I mean, how could they not be a little bit more improved over what they were last year? And that team was in utter shambles when they let Willie Taggart go. I kind of defended the guy, said give him a little bit more time, give him a little more time. I mean, a one-point overtime win against UL Monroe, where you had to rely on UL Monroe missing an extra point just to send the damn thing to overtime or just to win the game, whatever it was that happened, just proved to me that, maybe he doesn't belong there. And then what did you do? You had what was that? There's a crazy picture with a wide receiver, one lined up this way and one lined up backwards or something. I don't know. Craziness. Just in total disarray. Florida State, they've gotten to improve their play along the offensive line. It was horrible last year, one of the worst offensive lines in Power 5, if not the worst. And I think they will be. You better hope you are for this game, or they're going to eat your lunch. Just not getting blown out in your own stadium will be an improvement. And who would have thought we'd have said that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we were talking about Florida State? Who would have thought that we were talking about it just being an improvement for you to be competitive? I mean, you can get bad in a hurry if you don't, if you lose your coach, that is what it is. I mean, you're not recruiting in the right places. Things can go south quickly. And they certainly have with Florida State. They have some decent players at some of the skill positions, but they're just not as talented as Clemson. And it's going to be a long time before this guy gets them rebuilt to where they were in 2013, when they had a team that arguably was one of the greatest college football teams ever, right? I think all 22 players got drafted at some point in the NFL draft over the next couple of years. I don't think they'll ever get back to that point, to be honest with you. But this guy is a step in the right direction. Clemson will win this game, however. Give me the Tigers here by 3 to 4 scores on the road at Florida State. I think they'll play a little bit better than they have in the past against you guys, but it's not going to be enough. October 17th, you got NC State at home. another name your score type game. NC State, the past couple of years, has played Clemson, have not looked good. They really started going downhill when that quarterback they had in 2017, what was his name, Finley, when he graduated, or when he went to the NFL, whatever happened to him, he wasn't there anymore. It seemed like after that, I mean, they just kind of took a nosedive. I know they made a bowl a couple of years ago and finished second in the conference, but I mean, really, I mean, they were tearing. Last year, they were just an utter shit show. And Dave Doran is another coach that's on the hot seat. And this guy could have been the head coach at Tennessee, right? I mean, I believe that Tennessee actually offered Dave Doran, and Dave Doran told him no. So, I mean, he could have had an SEC job, but now, I mean, you know, what's happened in North Carolina has gotten a lot stronger up there. Mac Brown's recruiting better players. He's getting all the elite talent in the state of North Carolina, or a lot of it's coming to UNC. I just saw today they picked up another 4-star defensive lineman, somebody that's the University of South Carolina offered. Yeah, big surprise there. We talked about this on video the other day on the Carolina Jackpot Channel. I told you I don't steer you wrong. So, you know, NC State's suffering big time from UNC's resurgence. I don't see this game being competitive at all. 5-6 score victory for Clemson. By this time, I think that Mr. Lawrence is rolling along with Mr. Ladson and Mr. Nagata, and I think we're seeing now what kind of players they will be, whether they are going to be Justin Ross, T. Higgins 2.0 or not. We'll know by this point in time. Then you got Syracuse at home. Got a long stretch here without a bye week, right? Everybody only gets one bye week this year. It's not two like there was last year. So you got Syracuse at home, and this, a team that's a little bit down. Last year they had not a good year. They finished up 5-7, and they were just everybody's sexy pick to compete with Clemson, to be second in the ACC Atlantic over the offseason last year. If you'd watched the Carolina Jackpot Channel like you're supposed to be doing, you would have heard me say on here that no, it's not happening. This team is not going to be as good as they were, because all you had to do was look back to the previous year and see that when Eric Dungy, who was their quarterback from like 2016 to 18, was playing, everything was on cruise control and they were doing really well. However, when they inserted who was then the freshman, Tommy DeVito, things didn't look so good. And the freshman who turned sophomore last year, Tommy DeVito, was in command of that offense, and they just didn't look as good. They returned last year Mo Neal at running back, who had done a nice job for them the previous year. You didn't see the type of production from him either that you saw when he had Dungy as a quarterback there, right? And guess who's leading the charge again this year? Right, Mr. DeVito. I look for maybe a one-game improvement from Syracuse. This is not the team that's going to come into Death Valley and go Clemson a scare like they did 2 years ago. If everybody remember that game, that was the one where Kelly Bryant had quit the team earlier in the week because he lost his starting job to the freshman, Trevor Lawrence. And lo and behold, in that game, Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. And everybody's like, well, where's Kelly? Where's Kelly? Wasn't anywhere to be found. Chase Bryce comes in and leads them to a win over Syracuse. I was listening to that game on my phone at work. I think the Gamecocks played at night that day, or we were off or something. I don't remember what happened. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all when T. Higgins caught the touchdown pass in that game. You guys beat Syracuse 27-23 that day. And the legend of Mr. Bryce was born. Don't expect that this year. Clemson will take care of Syracuse, no problem, and you will move to, hey, I've lost count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they'll be 8-0. All right, then you got an off week, right? Then the real competition starts. Head to South Bend, Indiana, take on Notre Dame. Clemson visits Notre Dame for the first time since 1979. That was a Clemson victory that year. at Notre Dame Stadium. So you've beaten them the last 2 times out, right? You took care of business against them in the college football playoff back in 2018. Was it 33-3 or something like that? 30-3, right? You blew them out. They were never in the game. It was never competitive at all. And in 2015, there was a huge monsoon. I remember that game was televised on ABC, and Clemson got out to a big lead there, and Notre Dame came roaring back and couldn't punch it in for a 2-point conversion there at the end, and Clemson ended up winning that one. I think it was 24-22. It was something like that. It was a 2-point victory for the Tigers. If Notre Dame had punched that in, they would have tied the game up. That one was famous. Notre Dame coach Brian Kelly, when he comes out to lead his team onto the field, looks at the crowd at Death Valley, and you see his eyes get big. Everybody makes a big deal out of that one. Says, look at how scared he was when he was coming onto our field. Look at how scared he was when he saw 85,000 fans out here in the rain and pouring. What it was is the light hit him some sort of way, okay? He wasn't scared of shit, okay? He's the head coach at Notre Dame. They don't get intimidated, by playing Clemson or, playing anybody. I mean, it's Notre Dame. Come on. Anyway, got Notre Dame on the road. They got a pretty tough schedule this year, but they do have several ACC teams sprinkled in there. And while I'm here, I'm kind of making some reference to College Football Magazine. It just kind of helps me out a little bit. And Notre Dame, I just wanted to take a quick look at their schedule. They actually play the week before you guys play. So you have an off week. They play a home game against Duke. And so I know what the jokes are. They got an off week too. But if you look at Notre Dame, they have a bad problem with playing like garbage, especially towards the middle to the end of the season against inferior teams at home. We saw them do it a few years ago against Pittsburgh. They almost lost to them. You saw them do it last year against Virginia Tech. Not saying Virginia Tech is an inferior team, but they're definitely more on the caliber of Notre Dame. They came on a little bit last year at the end of the year, but that should have been an easy 2-3 score win for Notre Dame. They beat Virginia Tech's rival, and a much better team than Virginia Tech last year at home earlier in the season, and they handled them with ease. Then they struggled with the Hokies. Same thing here. They got Duke at home. I mean, and it could turn out to be the same type situation. So then they'll have Clemson coming up right after that. The best possible thing that can happen for those of us who want to see Clemson lose is for Notre Dame to play like shit against Duke. Because if they play like garbage against Duke, then they're going to be coming out and want to make a statement. They got Ian Book coming back. They returned some starters along their offensive line. They got some questions at a couple of the skill positions. Got a whole new wide receiver crew there. So I'm interested to see what Notre Dame can do offensively. Their defense returns 5 starters. They should be okay. Their schedule before they play Clemson, it's not that bad. You've got a game against Wisconsin at Lambeau Field where the Green Bay Packers play at, which will be your toughest test. You also got a home game with Stanford. I mean, if it's anything like the Stanford team that we saw last year, there's not going to be any problems there. If it's like the Stanford teams that we've seen previous 3-4 years before that, you could be in for some problems. They got Wake Forest, Western Michigan, Arkansas. They're not going to have any issues. In fact, it's very likely that they could come into this undefeated, possibly a one-loss team, and I would think that one loss would come to Wisconsin, which, without a Jonathan Taylor on their team, I mean, I don't know how much firepower they're going to have. At any rate, I think Clemson wins this game. I mean, Notre Dame, yes, they can be tough at home, but this is not the Notre Dame of old. This is not the Notre Dame from the late 80s, the early 90s that was, just invincible. It's not the Notre Dame from the Joe Montana era. They're really just a team that that really doesn't live up to expectations most years. And I mean, I could see this one going the same way. I mean, I could actually see them coming into this game undefeated and then blowing it at home. And there you go. There's their chance to make it to the college football playoffs. And we all know in order for them to get to the college football playoffs, they're going to have to be undefeated because they do not play in a conference. So there's one strike against you already. As opposed to a team like an Alabama who could lose one game, or an LSU who could lose one game in conference to a decent team, then go out, win the conference championship game, and they're right back in the mix for the playoffs. Not the same way with Notre Dame. You have to do it all within the confines of the regular season schedule, and you pretty much have to go undefeated. I just don't see it happening here. I see Trevor Lawrence being the difference. Ian Book is a decent quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback. Lawrence is an elite quarterback. I think you'll win this game, from a touchdown to 2 touchdowns. Say anywhere from 7, 10, 14 points, somewhere in there. You are 9-0 after that point. You come back home on the 14th, take on the Citadel. I'm sure that you're not going to pull a Gamecock and lose to the Citadel at home. That's not happening, not in the cards. This beatdown may even be worse than the one against Akron. Clemson wins this one. November 21st, you go on the road, take on Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. Wake Forest has had a decent team the past few years. I really like their head coach a lot, Dave Clawson. This is a guy that I've had my eye on, and just kind of foreshadowing a video that I may be doing soon once I get all my notes together on these individuals. I'm going to do a video about head coaches or potential candidates that I could see replacing Will Muschamp as head coach at South Carolina. Dave Clawson's on that list. What Dave Clawson has done at Wake Forest with the stringent academic requirements to get into this school, with the limited talent pool that he's got, it's remarkable. I mean, he's done a really good job. If you look at him over the year since he's been there, I mean, I still think that he has a losing record at Wake Forest overall by maybe 1 or 2 games. But, I mean, he's sent them to bowl games, a couple of bowl wins, right? Beat Texas A&M in a bowl game. I mean, beat Texas A&M. There's something we can't even say that we've even done. So, Dave Clawson they're innovative on offense up there. Thing about it is they hadn't been that competitive with Clemson since they, quote-unquote, got good at Wake Forest, since they're not, the whipping boy of the ACC anymore. That, would belong to Florida State now, I guess. They're decent, and they've given a lot of teams problems. Just haven't given Clemson many problems. I mean, Clemson last year, they beat them at home like 52-3. The year before that, Travis Etienne showed out. I think he won in Wake Forest like 62-3 or something like that. This year, coming at this point in the schedule, when it does, you normally do play them late in the schedule anymore. I think that trend reverses this year. I think this is going to be a tough game for you, and I see this being your toughest conference game. I really do. I think Wake Forest is going to throw the kitchen sink at you in this one. They return what's his name, Sam Hartman at quarterback. They got the Surratt kid back at wide receiver. They've got some talent up there. I think they're going to give you a tough test, and I still think you pull the win out here. Maybe by a touchdown or so on the road, but I look for Wake Forest to buck the trend of getting blown out by Clemson every year, and really play well in this game. November 28th, you got my Gamecocks at home. This is, in all likelihood, well, that's good stuff. If you've never drank the blackberry lemonade flavored water sparkling beverage from Walmart Neighborhood Market, you should give it a try. Shit's delicious. this is likely to be the last game of Will Muschamp's career at the University of South Carolina. I mean, I don't see us having a good season this year, and that I'm going to do that video later on. There are many, many, many reasons why. You'll be 11-0 coming into this game if all goes as I have talked about here in this video. Last year was 38-3 in Columbia. That was about what I expected. I at least expected us to maybe score with that pathetic offense that we had. I didn't do it. This year, I don't, as in many years in the past, I don't know what to expect from us. I do not know what to expect. Mike Bobo's coming in as the offensive coordinator. He is installing a kind of a throwback type offense. He's putting a fullback in there. I think they're going to rely on the running game a little bit more. He's kind of going to go towards with a UGA type offense that he was running down there. But the thing is, I don't know if we have the horses to run a UGA offense. We're going to be trotting a freshman running back out there on the field, although a highly touted freshman, yet still a freshman, behind a mediocre offensive line. Our talent at wide receiver is limited to. The other night before the Rob Conrad and Kale show, we have, you have regional covers for these Athlon magazines. This is the regional cover for the actual magazine with all the teams. It's got Trevor Lawrence on it. The one that's just the SEC edition, we actually have a South Carolina player on that one for this area, and it's Shi Smith, a guy who comes in. He's got 400 and something yards receiving. Taking nothing away from him, I like him. He's a good ball player. I had thought that maybe going into the 2019 season, they would kind of try to make him that Deebo Samuel type player, that kind of slot type player, that kind of do everything, utility infielder type of dude. But, I mean, it really just never happened. I mean, he's not the next Deebo Samuel. He's just not. He's still a good ball player, but, I mean, that's what we got on our cover. 400 and something yards receiving coming back. A chunk of it, 75 of it, coming in one game against Tennessee. So, there's not a lot of Jimmys or Joes on that offense. Nothing to be scared of. There's nobody on there that makes you, oh, God, we got to play against him. Whew, let me go shit my pants real quick, and then I'll get back to you. We don't have anybody like that. And it's telling. Hopefully, Ryan Helinski will be improved this year. His play will be improved. The offense coordinator, Bobo, especially his quarterbacks. He was quarterback in college. Joe Cox, quarterback's coach. I think they're going to work on his fundamentals with Ryan. I think he's going to be a lot better of a player this year. It would not surprise me to see the Gamecocks be competitive in this game, just because I think that this is going to be Will Muschamp's swan song. A lot of times when this kind of situation comes up, you see these players try to fight hard for that coach, even though as fans, most of us probably don't want that. You still see that happen. There's loyalty there, and they have a reason to be loyal to the guy. I mean, he loves them. I mean, he loves his players. I mean, you can tell that he does. He has the passion. The passion is there. The heart is there, okay? The heart is there, but the football acumen as a coach is not there, and that's why we need a change. It would not surprise me to be competitive in this game. Not so much in the way that we were competitive 2 years ago, where we were kind of throwing the ball back and forth, and it's kind of back and forth game in the first half. And Clemson kind of opened up a big lead, and then the Gamecocks kind of came back on them a little bit, and then they kind of punched in that little touchdown there with ETN towards the end of the game, which was kind of unnecessary, just for Dabo getting some style points and making the final margin really a little worse than what the game really was. I don't think you'll see that type of game. I think you will see South Carolina playing really good defense. And we have a really good secondary. We really do. That secondary has a chance to be elite if all things fall into place correctly and all these guys live up to their potential. So I could see a defensive type game there. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I could also see us going up there laying down, playing horribly, and Clemson winning a blowout by 5, 6 touchdowns. I mean, I could also see that happening. The only scenario I couldn't see happening is the Gamecocks blowing Clemson out. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's silly talk. So you win that game, irregardless of how, what my feelings are towards you. You're winning that game. I mean, we're not. It won't be close at the end. So you finish up the regular season 12-0. I think you do. I think you win out for the third season in a row. Your opponent in the ACC championship game, haven't got that one figured out yet. UNC is the sexy pick to go there from everybody, but not so fast with Carolina Jackpot. I'm going to look at these teams a little bit closer and come up with who I think will go there. I've got my mind thinking about another team in the ACC Coastal I think could possibly make it there instead of UNC, and we'll see how that plays out. But you should take care of business against whoever it is and get to the college football playoff again. So that is my prediction for the 2020 Clemson Tigers. Congratulations, I guess, in advance on another great season. If y'all enjoyed this video, I know it's run a bit long. I'm sorry about that, but when you're going through 12 games, you got to spend a little bit of time on them, right? If you enjoyed this video, please hit it with a thumbs up. Please share the video somewhere. Share it with your friends on Facebook, to your group there. If you got a little football group or something, share it there. Share it on Twitter. Tweet that shit out. Put it on Instagram, or however that goes, or whatever. Carolina Jackpot really don't mess with that Instagram stuff. That's for them kids, but sometimes a lot of them kids watch my videos, so y'all share it there too. Let everybody know about the Carolina Jackpot channel. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks, guys, and I will see y'all later. Appreciate it. Peace. And I'm out. Go Gamecocks. Yeah, I rode on my hand today at work. Spurs up to my toes up, baby. Fire, boom. Woo!